All right, so this was about a week ago, so sorry for the delay in getting this video out, but I still felt like this was something that would be awesome to be able to create a video around. I love the 150 just because of how it challenges both that speed, that short distance speed that you need in the 100, but also gives a little bit more of that top end speed because obviously you're going for 150, and it's different from the 200 because you don't have that curve. So it's really a great test of overall speed, and it really just confirms how fast Noah Lyles is. This is the third fastest time ever. We had Usain Bolt ran 14:35, Tyson Gay ran 14:41. There is different people saying that Fred Curley was able to actually beat Usain Bolt's time. He didn't officially do it in the 150, at least not yet. There's a nice rivalry going on between Noah Lyles and Erriyon Knighton, so it's always fun to be able to see those guys go. And then Ferdinand Omanyala. And when we see all of their first steps, we see a lot of similarity in terms of body position and also the ability to really get those feet down quickly and effectively. The only thing I would say with Erriyon Knighton, he looks a little bit more bent over. He looks a little bit more out of position with his body position as he's getting started here. And also looks like he's a little bit struggling with his range of motion, specifically within that right foot. Potentially really both the right and the left foot, but definitely more so in the right foot as he's coming around. It looks like he's not doing that as effectively. And typically how you land and how your toe off end up really correlating a lot with each other. So if you see ineffectiveness within the time spent off of the ground and the position of the feet, position of the toes, it has a lot to do with any type of limitations you may be having within the foot. And when we're seeing that foot come through here, it's a lot more turned out. The position isn't as good as I think it can be, especially within some of these first few steps. This is something that I've recently talked a little bit more about. Going to Noah Lyles, that's really who we want to be able to break down. A lot of really good things that he's doing here. I think this was a great idea for him to be able to do this too in his training, just because run the 100. Let's look also from the front view. Great job of being able to get the foot down. We can look a little bit into the timing as well, just real quick. I know that doesn't end up being super exciting for a lot of people. 0.13 time-wise, 5.6 to 7.3. That is 1.7. 8.0 to 9.4. Very quick off of the right leg. A little bit longer within the left leg, and that's interesting, especially because that right leg is the first step that goes down. So he just really does a good job of being able to land on that right side, transition right back off. That left side, we can see a little bit more of that internal rotation there and that heel coming inwards a little bit more. I don't usually like to teach that. That's not something that we want to be able to see. We want to be able to see a little bit more of just like the stability within that heel, or if we're going to go in, we'd want to be able to come straight forward. So we can see on this right side, he does a better job of being able to keep that heel in the whole time. Left when it goes in, and then it also comes out before we end up being able to transition off. So we'd like to be able to see that hip come through a little bit smoother to be able to transition off the foot a little bit more effectively there. Does a great job though. This is what he is really such an excellent sprinter for, is because he's able to so effectively get the knee through, and this is obviously bilaterally. This is on both sides. See how he transitions, so he lands here. Well, notice how his hips transition to the other side. So he has, his hip here, right? He's landing. He has most of his weight on the inside part of his foot. Then he transitions his weight to that opposite foot. And as he's doing that, he's getting that knee through. This creates a great angle to be able to now create a extension before foot contact. So what a lot of times I see is people will be much more aligned in this position. So the knee is basically right in front of the hip. The foot is then, it's very common for the foot to be right underneath the knee, but the more effectively you can get that knee almost inside of the hip, then that creates the opportunity for you to be able to generate extension in the hip before foot contact, which is such an important part of being able to generate force into the ground. When you want to talk about sprint velocity curves, force velocity curves, and how much horizontal force we're generating into the ground, where does that horizontal force come from? It comes from being able to create extension in the foot. It comes from the front side mechanics. How well can we maximize our ability to generate force into the ground? And he does such a great job, even though even on this one, for instance, like his foot is very far in, his knee is much more on the outside, so he's in a great degree of would be considered external rotation within the hip, but he still ends up getting himself into internal rotation, which is where he's at now, because of what he's doing within his body. So he's shifting his weight, or he's shifting his hips towards the outside, and he's also getting that knee to be able to come right up and through. So now he gets in that internal rotation, which then makes it so then as he's striking the ground, he's able to do that very effectively. And again, we see that position within the elbows. We recently talked about this with Usain Bolt, where he's getting the elbows kind of towards the outside, and then as he comes forward, he comes back on into the inside. And that's really a big part of what he's doing when it comes to being able to accelerate. And what I just love about these top sprinters is they do such an amazing job of being able to be quick, right? So they're accelerating here. They're very fast with their ability to get to top speed, but they're still also patient in being able to really open up all the way, right? So even though he is doing a really, really good job of being effective and being quick, this is what makes him professional, so what makes him, amongst the best in the world, if not the best in the world, is because he is quick, but he's also fast. And so what that means is he's able to accelerate well, right? He's able to get out of the blocks. Obviously, that's something that he's been focusing a lot more on, but he's not doing it in a way that's going to restrict him into really opening up when it gets to top speed. So when you see people that get impatient with how they're running, because you can see a lot of similarities in what he's doing at top speed and what he was doing in the start, and that's what happens. Yeah, there's differences within the backside mechanics, and there's differences within how his foot is striking the ground, or where the foot is striking the ground in comparison to the rest of the body. When you start off, you're going to have that foot a little bit more out in front. You're going to be landing a little bit more on the outside part of the hip, right? Your feet are going to be a little bit wider with the landing position, but as you start to gain speed, there ends up being that transition to where now that foot's landing much more right underneath the hip, and you're a lot taller, the spine position's a lot different, and now he's really able to open up. And that's what gives him really that unique ability to separate, is his ability to get to that top speed. So you can see, like with Ferdinand Omanyala here, he's right there. They were talking about how he's essentially winning in this position, right? He's ahead of Noah Lyles, but now Noah Lyles really starts to be able to open up once he started to get a little bit separated from Noah Lyles, and there ended up becoming that difference there. And that's going to be, I think, the biggest thing with Ferdinand is he's got to overcome the height difference, right? So there's a big difference with Noah Lyles and Ferdinand Omanyala when it comes to overall height, overall size. And so what Ferdinand Omanyala has to be able to do is similar to what Sha'Carri Richardson's able to do really well, which is to be able to create that vertical force at top speed, right? He's very, very good at being able to create a lot of horizontal force, and he's very strong, which allows him to be able to get out very quickly. But then once he gets to top speed, he's got to be able to generate that really great vertical force and be very quick off the ground, which ends up being really a product of having a lot more of that kind of tight positioning, right? So if the wider you end up getting within those arms, the longer your foot contact's going to end up being, right? So if you could be more compact with those arms, what ends up happening is now you don't end up spending so much time with that arm swing. We all know that there's a direct correlation with what we're doing with the arms, with how that translates into what we're doing within the legs, and really specifically because those end ranges are really important, right? So as this foot's hitting the ground, as we're getting to end range, we're transitioning off to then be able to make it so now this arm's going to end up swinging through. The wider we end up being there, though, now there ends up being a lot more of a stability factor that ends up coming into play when we have to hit the ground. So as our foot's hitting the ground, we're coming more across with the foot, right? So you can see how he's landing and he's going inside with it, that foot contact time, and then has to be able to transition off. And that's all time that's going to be translated not into vertical force, but actual horizontal force. The issue with him is that when he's relying too much on horizontal force, he's not really able to open up fully within his stride, and he's already limited with his stride position. That's what Noah Lyles does really well, is when he's landing very much right underneath him, so then he could transition right back off. Now he's got a lot of length within his stride. He's still moving his legs fast, but Ferdinand Omanyala is moving his legs faster, but he is not covering nearly the amount of ground, nearly the amount of distance that he needs to be able to really be able to continue to sustain that top end speed. So he can get up to his top speed well, but now, as he's getting into this position, we can even see with that right leg, he's very turned out to the side here, which again, these are all things that are going to make it so now as you transition, you're not going to be able to be as effective. You're going to spend a lot more time on the ground, and you have to be at your top speed we all know that we have to be able to create vertical force. It ends up being what's a key contributor when it comes to top end speed is vertical force production. A key contributor when it comes to the start is horizontal force production. The best sprinters are able to create both horizontal force and vertical force, or sustain horizontal force and then be able to translate that into vertical force at top end speed. And a lot of that comes from the efficiency and the effectiveness of the leg swing. And what are we doing when we're starting? So the more we can really understand that and where we might have some areas to improve, where we might have some deficiencies, where we're not maybe fully grasping that concept, it really ends up being important. The higher level you end up getting, the faster you want to be able to run. If you want to just get, basic fast, you can get a little bit, you can improve on little small things here, and that will make it so then you end up being faster than a lot of, local athletes, local soccer players, football players, even track and field athletes. If you have the right type of strength and the right type of arm swing, things like that, you work hard, all those things end up making a big difference. But now, when it comes to going against the elite people, the top people in the world within your specific craft, these small details matter, such as force production, such as arm swing, such as leg position, such as foot strike, and not completely grasping the difference between what it is that you're doing that's really holding you back in comparison to really being able to understand what maximizing your overall capabilities looks like, and working on those and consistently addressing those really, I think, makes a big difference when it comes to, again, making it so you can compete amongst the best of the best when it comes to the 100-meter, 200-meter, things like that. So again, thanks for watching. If you found this information interesting, go ahead and click that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We're always producing more and more content just like this. Really want to be able to provide as much value as I can for young sprinters, for sprinters in general, people that are looking to understand the biomechanics of really not only the body and not only sprinting, but just being able to understand the specificity of performance in general, of understanding what it takes to get yourself to the next level, not only in the running side or the sprinting side, but just when it comes to general elite performance and how you want to be able to look at the minute details when it comes to really optimizing your overall success as an athlete, as well as just, I think, a person in general. So again, like the video, subscribe. We're going to continue to produce great content like this, and we'll talk to you soon.